right, so look, it's really becoming rowdy right here. It's really becoming rowdy and violent.
Very worried sight. You could hear someone saying, turn off the camera. And that's just one of several incidents happening during the End Bad Governance protests. Non-state actors, hoodlums, thugs, area boys, harassing journalists, sometimes harming them bodily in their line of duty. And it leaves a very terrible taste in the mouth. So let's talk about this, because this is critical to democracy and the success of or otherwise of it. We have joining us on the program veteran journalist, Executive Director, International Press Center, IPC, Mr. Lanre Arogundade joins us virtually, as well as Deborah Agbalama, of course, our correspondent at Channels Television, Rivers State. She also had a very terrible experience during the End Bad Governance in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital, and a senior photojournalist and reporter, Daily Independent newspaper, and chairman, Nigerian Union of Journalists, FCT Correspondents Chapel, Mr. Jide Oyekunle. Ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to the morning brief.
Thank you.
Well, Deborah, you're not new to the morning brief, so the welcome is not really for you. But let me begin with Mr. Arogundade, because you've covered events from the military era, from the June 12th struggle and the rest. And I wonder for you, how do you place what you saw happen in the past few days in context of other events, either during the military era or otherwise? How are you internalizing it, Mr. Arogundade?
Well, it's been quite difficult to internalize what has happened, because for me, we had new dimensions of restriction or even assault on the rights of journalists to perform their work during a national emergency. I said so because I said this advisedly. So you take the example of the TV crew that were at Lekki Toll Gate on the first day of action, in the expectation that some of the protesters might come there. And they said, this was a live reporting, that, the police told them not to interview anybody at all, not even a passers-by, So, and they were saying that, well, our duty is to talk to people and ask them questions, whether they are protesters or no protesters. And they said, no, you cannot. You cannot interview anybody, because if you do that, one or two people might gather and so on. That for me was a totally new development, something unprecedented, that you begin to tell journalists how to do their work. And then we had other dimensions of these assaults. We had about 4 types of assaults in the course of these protests. The first I've already mentioned, and it also included direct assault by security agents or journalists who had actually identified themselves. And some were shot at close range with tear gas. A female journalist was injured in that process in Abuja, and that's one level. The other level is still by the security agents preventing journalists from doing their work, and this happened at the National Stadium, which was an approved venue for the protest, at least at the level of the law court, where journalists were ordered out, and at a stage they were molested. The second one is direct molestation by security agents. Then the third one is molestation by anti-protest protesters. In other words, people who are favorably disposed to the government, who really saw journalists as part of the protesters probably, and as enemies, and then assaulted them. So at the end of the day, we're looking at so many instances of attacks on journalists across the country, during the protests, which meant that people never appreciated the role that journalists play in this kind of situation. I should also mention that journalists were also arrested in a place like Cross River in Calabar. Jonathan Ubai of Cross River Watch was arrested before it was later released. To me, yes, we've had attacks on journalists during protests and so on, but the dimension that this took was really, really unprecedented. And the final one I should mention as part of this opening remark was the attack on the News Central TV crew in Lagos. Now, they were assaulted by those people called, thugs, because they went to Ojota in the expectation that probably protests might still take place. And then this assault came, and there were police officers and men stationed there. They were right there. And they just looked the other way and allowed the thugs to have a free rein. These are just major threats, the kind of which we had never seen before. And I don't want to begin to talk about military era and so on and so forth, because we knew what journalists went through, and it's really disturbing. We are really confounded, and we're wondering where this kind of development will lead us.
All right, let's go to Port Harcourt. Deborah, yours was, I think, just barely 48 hours or so ago. Maybe you can walk us through exactly what played out, because I understand you went to the Federal Secretariat area on a bar road and something played out. Maybe so that for context for our audience, so they can understand exactly what happened.
Okay, thank you, Geoff. Good morning to you and the other crew members. It was 2 days ago, like you said, 48 hours, I think thereabout. Normally, Port Harcourt has been really peaceful. The police do not actually take sides. They are there to protect the protesters. And they've been really professional. I must give them the credit in the whole 6 days before my experience that day. And I hear that things have gone back to normal yesterday as well. Anyway, that morning, I got to the protest ground. They usually take off from the Federal Secretariat front there. So they will cluster, they will gather there, and then up from there, they now go to other parts of Port Harcourt. Just like every other day, I arrived, and then there were the presence of the police, heavy presence of the police. And so I asked why are the protesters not standing in front of the Secretariat. They told me, that they are still gathering. One of the policemen replied to me and pointed opposite direction for me, that's where they are gathering now. They are waiting there for others, so I should go and meet them there. And so I was walking towards them, so I had to cross about 4 lanes to get to them. I crossed the first one, and an instinct just told me, take your shot from here. I stopped, and I started taking footage. I took the shot, and after taking this shot, I turned to now capture the policemen to establish that, on the contrary from what we have before, they are now gathering opposite, while the police alone is in front of the Secretariat. As I turned, the next thing I saw were a group of young men just surrounded me. And then their numbers begin to multiply. It turned from 3 to 4, 5. Before I know what's happening, I was in between over 10 guys, 10 men, so they clustered around me, and I'm like, any problem? They said, yes. Why are you taking footage of us? Why you do film us? And I told them that, well, I'm here to do my job. I'm a journalist. And I've been covering the protests. We've not had any issues. Are you not a protester? They said, no, we're not protesters. So we're here to ensure that no protest happens. One of them tried to slap me. I said, why are you behaving like this? Why would you want to hit me? What have I done wrong to you? I said, please don't do this. He said, okay, if you don't want us to manhandle you now, just open your tab and give us the footage. One of them tried to grab my tab. I held on to it. We struggled a bit. I said, please, can you let go of my tab, please? Whatever you want, I will do for you. What do you want? They said, okay, open the videos you've shot today. I went there. They said, they started watching. They watched the first one. Second one, they said, okay, delete these two. One of them put their hands and deleted. And then they said, we need you to go to your recycle bin because it will still be there. You have to delete it there as well. And so I obeyed. I opened the recycle bin for them. One of them tapped on it and deleted the video. This was when they said that you're lucky you're a woman. If not, by now your eyes would have been swollen. we have to get out of here and start living here immediately. And all these things took about 5 to 6 minutes. The police were actually standing there and they did nothing to help. They basically led me into those guys because I asked them, where are the protesters? They pointed where those guys are. And the thing is, when I got to my car, one of the passerby around there came to me because as soon as I got to my car and entered, it's tinted. So I noticed that another protester that just arrived was getting beaten by these same men, these same suspected thugs, was getting beaten by, they were beating him up already. One of the passerby now came to my window, knocked. And then I went down a little bit and he said, Madam, please just leave here now. I said, why? He said, because these policemen have been here and they witnessed these thugs beating up people.
Right.
They're beating up 2 protesters and it was really done to them. So it was at that point that I knew I had to drive away. I drove off and I got to the Commissioner of Police, River State, because it was strange because we've had a smooth sail with this whole protest in Port Harcourt.
Deborah, just a moment.
Yeah.
We'll come to the reaction of the police and whether or not they've been able to arrest those thugs, those responsible for what you went through. Nobody should have to go through that, not even a woman in a line of duty. But I'd like us to get Mr. Oyekunle's experience as well, who joins us from our Abuja studio. He's a senior photojournalist and the reporter Daily Independent newspaper. I know that we also had incidents in Abuja. Mr. Arugunade talked about the tear gas canister hitting journalists and some of them being harassed. So tell us your own side of events. Oyekunle.
Thank you very much. It is quite unfortunate that the media and civic space is becoming suffocating, dangerous, toxic, and hostile on a daily basis. And this height of impunity was actually carried out by the FCT Commissioner of Police himself, Mr. Bennett Ingwe, and the reason all this is happening is because of the intolerant posture of Nigerian government and its officials to the criticism and dissenting voices. Yeah. I was one of the victims in Abuja. The Commissioner of Police led the operation at the Eagle Square and his men, where he assaulted, harassed, and ordered my arrest while covering the protests. We were at the Eagle Square. Many of the journalists were there covering the protests. You know, when you are covering protests, there are some security tips that you need to take to consideration. We were inside. We are with the police because we don't want to be at the other side of the scene in order to avoid maybe stray bullet or whatever, or the tear gas canister. So we were with the police and we were covering the protests when they were firing the tear gas at the protesters. When we were standing at the Federal Secretariat with the other journalists, both local and foreign journalists, the Commissioner of Police himself walked down to me and he told me that, why am I covering the protests? Why am I at the Eagle Square? That he has told us not to come to Eagle Square. I said, we are journalists. We are covering the protest. We are doing our normal duty. He said no, that he will charge me for trespass for covering the protest at the Eagle Square. I said, sir, we are journalists. We are doing our job. He said I should bring my phone. He ordered for my phone. I don't want to argue. I gave him my phone. And he said, arrest him. Take him away. In the process, he personally held my neck and he dragged me to himself and he handed me over to the armed policemen around. So in the process, they were dragging me like a common criminal, and it took the intervention of the other journalists who were at that at the scene, who shouted on top of their voices that no, he's a journalist. It's not a protester. What was his offense? Why are you arresting him? We will not allow this. So it took the intervention of my colleagues before they stopped that illegal arrest, and also the PRO of the FCT Police Command, that's SP Josephine Hardy, who also was at the scene. But where she was standing, she had to run and said, "Ah, no, this is a journalist. Why are you arresting him?" The officer that was holding me said that it was the CP that ordered his arrest. She said yes. She went to the CP, and I told her, I said, my phone is still with the CP, because the commissioner of police himself collected my phone and put it in his pocket, and my phone was with him throughout of that day for almost 8 hours. So at that point, I think the act, it was an affront on democracy. It was an affront on press freedom, because it was a clear indication to suppress, to muzzle, and to stifle the media. And we have been saying it all this while that journalism is not a crime. Journalism is for the positive change and development of any democratic society.
Indeed.
There is need to remind our security agents that press freedom, freedom of expression, and peaceful assembly, these are inalienable rights that have been stipulated and enshrined in the Constitution in section 39, section 22, and section 40 respectively.
Yeah.
But in a situation whereby security agents are trying to muzzle and to suppress media while carrying out their statutory and constitutional duty, this is not good for the democracy.
So, Mr.
Journalists
sorry,
and media.
pardon me. You're making a very valid point. It calls to question then whether law enforcement agents know the law that they're trying to enforce themselves, because it is clearly written there in black and white. It is taken for granted that law enforcement agents are meant to take a course in what the law says before they now enforce the law. So clearly they're not enforcing the law. So if Mr. Bennett Igwe, the Commissioner of Police in the FCT, actually arrested you, ordered your arrest, kept your phone, and afterwards the spokesperson of the police command, Joseph Nade, whom you said waited in, now put out a statement saying that you are taken away for your safety, when we clearly saw in those images how you were manhandled, how you were treated like a criminal, as you said, then lots of questions need to be answered by the commissioner himself, and more importantly, the commissioner, by the way, and then the men who carried out that act. But we've seen what a commissioner of police did in the FCT. Let's see what another commissioner of police did in Rivers State. We'll come to Mr. Arogodade in a moment, but Deborah, so what was the action of the commissioner of police in Rivers State after what happened to you?
Well, he quickly rang me back because I tried to reach him at first, and then I sent him a text explaining what I had encountered. And he quickly rang me back and said, "Where did this happen?" I said, Federal Secretariat. He said, in the next 30 minutes, he'll be there. That he doesn't understand what is going on, as he never at any point in time instructed his men to behave like that. And they ought to behave professional. So he quickly got to the venue of this particular incident, which is at the Presidential Federal Secretariat front. And then he queried the men there and then promised that he was going to investigate what really played out, why they would be here, and allow protesters be beaten up, or even allow these thugs or suspected thugs to surround me like that, harass me for minutes without helping me out. But eventually he also gave concerns that in the last 2 days that the protesters have been sort of mixed up by thugs, and these thugs have been destroying things. So perhaps there was need for the coordinators of the protest to begin to watch the crowd that's mixing into the protest. He apologized to me for the inaction of his men, and then promised to investigate and punish whoever it is that was at fault on that day. He's still yet to get back to us on that. Anyway, the next day, to show that he really meant what he said, protesters gathered yesterday in front of the Federal Secretariat. And well, I heard they didn't quite go round the city like before, but they were there in the morning time when I passed by, out of fear of whether these thugs would still be there, because I had gone on air to narrate my experience. I didn't actually stop by yesterday. I would need more reassurance from the CP before I can go there again. So that's what it is. But the CP intervened, and unlike the incident in Abuja by the CP there, this particular CP seems to be humane and sort of tries to keep a balance. And to give him the credit, throughout this protest, he had tried to. I think he's part of the reason the protesters have been really peaceful, because they don't also want to give him issues. He came the first day, he spoke to them, he appealed to them. The second day he came again, and this time around he gave them water, drinks, and refreshment, biscuits, and begged them, please keep on being peaceful. We don't want this rowdy. You have the right to peaceful protest, but don't obstruct others, So that is actually the situation in River State, to be candid.
All right, let's take it to Mr. Arogundede. CP Tinjudisu was in Lagos, I think RRS. So he has an experience when it comes to all of these things, as well as during the NSAS protest. I know at some point they were called the good guys, the good cop in Lagos. So Mr. Arogundede, you can see it's a mixed bag of reaction. But worrying, as my colleague Kayode has said, is if the Commissioner of Police doesn't understand basic tenets of the law, what does that leave us? Because the young man who is in Abuja studio clearly stated, with the intervention of his colleagues, that this is a journalist. And then the CP, for whatever reason, is quoting whatever law from wherever he got the law. What does that leave at the level of CP, that you don't understand basic tenets of this engagement?
Well, this conversation started with a question from Kayode to me, and asking me if we were to compare with the military period, what can we say about what we're going through now? And listening, of course, we already documented these attacks, and listening to our colleagues, personally narrating their experiences, I would just say, like lawyers say, I'm not a lawyer. It's a case of resa ipsa loquitur. The facts speak for itself, because we're dealing with a mindset, and I think what we saw in all this is the mindset that journalists should not be allowed to project what was happening. And apparently, one way or the other, different methodologies were, deployed to ensure that, these protests, journalists will not bring them, to public light. And the media is not the organizers of the protest. And like they have rightly said, the duty of the media is to report, events for the benefit of all, so that government itself would actually know what is going on. In Lagos, because we'll be talking about Commissioner of Police, I must also say that Kayode Akintemi, the managing director of News Central, actually embarked on a one-man protest to the office of the Commissioner of Police. He went there and met with the Commissioner of Police and said, this was what your men did. They looked the other way. Why my crew, why my media colleagues from my organization were being attacked? And he also said, well, some apology would look, into this. In those days of student unionism, we used to talk about, dogs would bark and bite. Rats would bite and blow fresh air on it. So we should also be very careful the way we are, thanking, praising after damage had been done, because you could see that this could also not have been done if. Let's concede that in the case of Rivers, the Commissioner of Police didn't know. In the case of Lagos, they didn't know. What we are now demanding is the outcome of that investigation. Who were these police officers or men who looked the other way? What have you done? What measures have you taken? How have you, sanctioned them? Because it's quite deliberate. What we saw.
My apologies, sir. As you're wrapping up your thought, I want you to speak to add to the fact that this particular one in Abuja has to do with the CP. So who will call Who is going to correct the CP that
No.
quote
So we
unquote
have.
doesn't understand what is going on?
I was coming to that because
Okay.
there's hierarchy in the police. So at the level of Abuja, there has been, we have this weighty, allegation backed with evidence that we have seen so far that the CP was personally involved. In that wise, we're calling on the Inspector General of Police. So it's not as if we're quite, helpless. So at the level of the state, yes, the Commissioner of Police, but where the Commissioner of Police is involved, what we want to hear from the Inspector General of Police, through the spokespersons, what have they done? Have they really questioned, the CP for this, kind of act? Because it sets a very, very, dangerous, precedent. And I do not think it's a good advertisement for this government or any other government whatsoever. Because we're in a global world. I mean, this program is being listened to in different parts of the world. They are seeing journalists saying a commissioner of police was personally responsible. I do not know any other form of bad advertisement for a government than that. And this really should be looked, into. There has to be, and we've been on this for a long time. We've had dialogue, we've had sessions where the first PRO was present, where we talked about, the need for us to, put in place, mechanisms, because the security men know that journalists will troop out, because this is a news event, it's a national event, it's a public interest event. It's not about taking sides. It's about something was going to happen. The notice for the protest was like 3 weeks or so before August 4th. Government itself was making pronouncements. They were saying, we'll prevent violence. In Lagos, there was parade of policemen and soldiers and so on. So everybody knew that something of national importance, of national interest was coming up. And of course, journalists cover them. Journalists also cover the police, cover their beats. So why are you, suddenly turning against them in the process of protest? So they knew that journalists would come out. And for me, the duty, my colleague there from Abuja was alluding to constitutional responsibilities. There are so many international conventions and frameworks about the protection of journalists in moments of crisis. Nigeria, for crying out loud, is part of United Nations. We're signatory to the African Charter on Peoples and Human Rights. It's actually part of our constitution. The president is the chairman of ECOWAS. There are also ECOWAS protocols on protection, of journalists. So there are so many, frameworks that nobody can claim ignorance as to what should be, their responsibilities. And I think going from here, these things should just stop, because it doesn't really speak well.
Indeed. Mr. Orogunade, we will talk to seeking redress, ensuring that for every infraction, there's how do they say it, equal and opposite reaction to that. Because the law provides for these things. If the law says when you commit a crime, this is what shall happen, everybody should be under the law. Nobody should be the law or a law to himself or herself. Institutions should be stronger than individuals. So we'll come to you to wind down on that point on seeking redress, so that these things do not happen again while journalists are in their line of duty, and also the rights of journalists when doing their job. So people out there will know, and security operatives will know, just in case they didn't know. But let me quickly ask Mr. Oyekunle rather, has there been any sort of apology, redress in that light? And what has that done to you in light of you doing your work? Have you been cowed, or you have more impetus, more courage to go out there and do your work, Mr. Oyekunle?
Yeah, that's what I've said. The commissioner of police was miffed because the journalists are covering that protest. And it is not only me that was attacked in Abuja. The Premium Times reporter he sustained injury on his head, and the AIT crew was also attacked, and a lady from Mary from New Central. But so far, there was no any apology. Rather, the police issued a very, very laughable statement that they took me to a safer place, while I did not even complain that I was under any threat. I think the situation so far, I'm just the way everything is going. There is need to remind the Nigerian government that they have that moral and legal responsibility to protect the fundamental right of every Nigerian citizen and freedom of expression and that of freedom of press, because Nigeria is a signatory to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, Article 9, and that of Article 19 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So the attitude of the Nigeria police and the security agents in Abuja during the coverage of this protest is nothing to write home about. And the safety of journalists is not negotiable. For now, I want to tell you that as I'm talking to you, I have not been I've not been feeling fine because of the trauma, the psychological and emotional trauma that I passed through. And I want to tell you that we are not going to abdicate our responsibility as journalists, because we are going to protect and uphold the fundamental objective of the Constitution and hold government accountable to the people as stipulated in Chapter 2 of the Constitution. Because if democracy is all about good governance, accountability, and transparency, the freedom of press should not be curtailed. It should not be denied, and it should not be taken away by the government or the security. So rather, we'll continue to do our job. We will not give up, because that is what we actually signed to do as a journalist, and to speak for the people of the country.
All right, let's take it back to, Deborah, I want to come to you in a moment, but let's take it back to Mr. Arogundede, winding down to speak to the issues of rights and responsibility, as well as what punitive measures are necessary to give us a better optics, because this optics right now is really bad, both for the CP who conducted himself in the manner he did and for the officers as well. But to provide context to how some of the law enforcement have characterized this in responding, the Chief of Defense Staff had actually said he was even frowning literally at the fact that journalists were giving them mileage. He even said some people this is not election, that were giving that kind of coverage. And where some of us responded and said, sir, with due respect, do your job, let us do our job. That's on one hand. The IGP came and denied, or saying that the police did not kill or did not use live ammunition. It hasn't provided evidence to the contrary, but people died. It is the police responsibility to explain to Nigerians how people died. He had promised that they will deploy body cam evidence to show whether police use live ammunition or not. We haven't seen, but we've seen videos across board. So I want you to speak to some of these punitive measures that are necessary in the immediate to deter law enforcement officers not to take laws into their hands and really do the work of protecting people, especially journalists who are also doing their jobs.
So we're at the level now where we're looking at the hierarchy of the police, and obviously a lot of responsibilities would lie on the office of the Inspector General of Police. But because the IG himself came out and said nobody was killed, and evidences are being shared to the contrary, it then means that we're in a situation where we're actually calling on the higher levels in the security apparatus, perhaps the office of the National Security Advisor, for them to recognize that this is a big problem we have. It does not give a good image, and there has to be a mechanism of investigation. Perhaps I think we can look in the direction of an independent investigation, so that everybody that is accused one way or the other could have an avenue to state their case. A kind of public inquiry that perhaps involves the judiciary, the bar association, the civil society, the youth movement, the women, coming together to say that let's have a real public investigation into this. And doing that would really go a long way, because the dimensions are really are many from the accounts we've had. And by the time you listen to other journalists, you really be wondering why we're in this kind of situation and how we have found ourselves in this kind of situation. So for me, I feel that we're at that level where we need a form of Truth, and Justice, Commission, a mini computer panel, if you want to put it that way, that can allow this, because we're talking of media, press freedom. We're also talking of civic, civic space, because some of these protesters too, were arrested and different things happened. We're also talking of thugs, apparently in some cases sponsored, attacking journalists and security agents, looking the other way. But that, of course, is still the police that we're going to, call upon. But moving away from here, I feel that that national mechanism we're talking about the protection and safety of journalists, right, is something that we can no longer run, away from. Right. We need to have that. We need to have, a national, policy, and disabuse the minds of those in authority. That you see, for me, I do not even think they are connecting with current trends in the world. Because when you say this is not election, this is protest, you cannot cover it. They should also not forget that individuals, onlookers, the protesters are armed with communication gadgets. So even if you prevent the conventional media from doing their work, these things are all over, the social media.
Well, Mr. Arugunade.
And then when it comes to social media, you now say, well, it's fake news and so on. The conventional media, the television stations, the broadcast media, the print media, the online media, that can bring credible and reliable information.
Well, Mr. Arugunade.
When you do that, you allow, disinformation, right, misinformation, and the situation gets, messier.
Well, if anything,
I know we can all the measures here, yeah, but we are dealing with a serious matter, and everybody should take this very, very seriously. At
well,
the level
anything, this has given us a shot in the arm, Mr. Arugunade, to keep doing our work. But we're winding down now.
Short.
Yes. Just a moment, just to wind down, I'd like us to get the final thoughts of Deborah on this one. Deborah, your final thoughts on this, particularly in the line of duty.
Okay, well, for Rivers State, because this is where I am, I want to just focus here while I touch the other national issues mentioned about press freedom. So for Rivers State,
I think in 30 seconds, but go ahead, please.
Okay, well, for Rivers State, I think that it's important also for the protesters to have coordinators, because in the last 2 days before the incident that happened, I also noticed that during the procession, thugs would come at some point. There was a particular point where the thugs destroyed the cubicle used for traffic control in one of the areas. So the thing is, the CP has a point that the protesters should be more organized. Where are their leaders? They should be always with them so that they can coordinate the movement and ensure no infiltration. However, what happened to me is actually appalling, and the trauma was bad, and it shouldn't happen to anybody, not a journalist, not a protester,
right,
because it is their right, just as it is their right to vote, it is their right to protest against anything they feel is not in line with what they voted.
Right.
And well, it's so long as they do this peacefully, I think that the police should allow both press freedom and the protesters to go about protesting peacefully. My last thoughts on it.
Just as we'll go about doing our work. Deborah, we have to let you go now because I know you have a busy day ahead doing what you love to do. Deborah Agbalama, Channels TV correspondent, River State, thank you for your time. We've also been speaking with Mr. Jide Oyekunle, senior photojournalist, a reporter, Daily Independent newspaper. He's also chairman of the NUJ FCT Correspondents Chapel. Thank you for your time as well as Mr. Lanre Arugunade, veteran journalist and executive director, International Press Center. We thank you and wish you the very best.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a break now, and when we return, we'll turn our attention to what's playing out with the Nigeria Labour Congress, the NLC, particularly the incident at its headquarters. That's in a moment. Stay with us.